Bring it back.
Hi guys, I'm Loz and welcome back to another episode of Total War Arena. So today we are playing with Tier 3 Barbarian Cavalry. So I've not done a cavalry video yet, and I thought it would be good to have a little look at the cavalry and sort of gain a few ideas on how they should be played, as they're probably one of the harder units to play well, and they're not so forgiving if you make a mistake or run into a phalanx or get caught up in a heavy infantry fight. So let's have a little quick look at what we're playing with. So the Tier 3 Barbarian Cavalry is the Barbarian Raiders. So they're just sort of quite out of well, they're very lightly armoured, so lightly armoured they don't even have any clothes. Barbarian Warriors with spears. I've got them fully upgraded. Their stats, obviously they're very quick, they have really good mobility, but pretty limited armour, and they've not got amazing melee attack or damage. So they're sort of medium cavalry compared to the other two. So we've got the Roman legionary cavalry, which have sort of a relatively poor charge, but once they get stuck in, they have reasonable hand-to-hand combat ability. You've got the Greek cavalry with their really long spears and lancers, which are really effective to charge. They do the most damage when they first charge in, but after that, in hand-to-hand combat, they're very ineffective, and they lose out significantly there. These are sort of somewhere in the middle. They have a reasonable charge, and they can hold their own once they get stuck into a fight. But at the same time, setting them head on into a phalanx and they will rapidly die, so you've got to really avoid doing that. One other thing which I found some people seem to be getting a little bit confused about in the game for all units is the basic stats. So if we go to equipment and we look, if I'm upgrading the spear from a cruel bronze spear to a twisted bronze spear, we see it gives plus 23 from plus 15 to plus 23 on what is the damage icon. But if we dig down to that, that's actually plus 18 melee damage. So the stats actually break down into a lot more detail than it looks on the surface. So if we go into this, so while it just went from plus 15 to plus 23 aggression, it's actually a plus 18 to melee damage specifically. Now, these different characteristics under aggression all do different things. So melee attack determines how likely you are to land a hit on the enemy, and then melee damage is, once the hit has been landed, the amount of damage that is done. So increasing these spears doesn't actually make it any more likely that you're going to do damage, but just increases the damage when you do hit. This is why people get a bit confused sometimes with some of the equipment. Things like survivability. So people expect things like some of the early riders have different hair, and that increases their survivability, and that makes people think that they're increasing the armor or the hit points of the unit, when actually they could be increasing something like base morale, and that's actually having no impact on how well they will resist arrow fire or that sort of thing. That just determines how long they'll stay in the fight when things start to go badly, because that's the morale. So sometimes you need to dig down a little bit deeper into these statistics to get an idea of what the various equipment upgrades actually do, and don't just take them on the face value of those 4 little stats, because that doesn't really give a very true indication of what actually is happening. So with that said, let's hop into a game and see if we can get into a fight. So we've loaded into the Battle of Thermopylae. Looks like we're predominantly top tier, we're tier 3. Most of the other teams seem to be tier 2, so that's good. Should give us a little bit of an advantage. Where am I going to go? I'll go here. So I'm looking at my placement on the map. Obviously I don't really want to be stuck out completely in the open, and it looks like there could be normally they're fairly balanced in terms of what they're facing up against, so there's not very many archers on our team. There's quite a lot of swords and pikes. So I'm going to sort of lightly initially loiter around the edge of this forest, see what appears down here, see if there are any enemies that are silly enough to bring their archers really far forwards, and see if there's any sort of opportunities to take advantage of there. So obviously, when you're playing as cavalry, you've got to consider the fact that you have the flexibility to do things that others don't. You have the ability to get across the map and to change location quite quickly. When you're playing as the Roman infantry, if I go in a certain direction, you're pretty much committed to that direction, because if I go down here and change my mind, by the time I walk all the way back round, it's too late and I've lost too much time and the battle is either already won or lost. But cavalry doesn't have that sort of disadvantage. So if you get into a situation where you're finding you know, you're facing off against too many people in one specific area, or there's no opportunities for you in a certain area, you know, do not be afraid to move. You have that flexibility, so make use of it. I want to get a little bit further into the forest so I'm not spotted. So this is what I was fearing, is larger numbers of enemy heavy infantry, which are going to be a threat to me. So some high tier pikes there, so these are people I want to be avoiding, but I would like to get stuck into these javelin men to do some very rapid damage to them. No archers that I have seen as of yet. There's some enemy infantry around there, and our team are pushing across the top. So really, at the moment it's hard because, you know, without these people actually committing to an engagement, there's not going to be a lot I can do. So there is enemy artillery, so that's another thing we need to keep in consideration. See, I sense possible opportunity here. If these pikes are going to be pushing forwards to engage, which it looks like they may, then I sense an opportunity to break round the back of these javelin men here. But it depends if, one, I'm going to get spotted, and if these pikes are actually going to engage or not. Currently it doesn't look like they are. Right, they are engaged. So I'm going to push around the back and have a go for these javelin men. It's a bit risky because we are pretty tight in. I may not do a cavalry charge because I don't want to completely run into them. I'm just going to try and plough into the back of them, like that. I'm going to activate Frenzy. Okay, and we are now got enemy. So I now want to escape from the hostile phalanx that started to twist round. So we did reasonable damage to these two javelin men, but unfortunately the enemy pulled back one of their phalanx units, which allowed them to get round behind me and start to attack, so I pulled out. One thing about cavalry is kind of learning when to fight and when to not fight, and it can be kind of hard to get that sometimes. Particularly as this player here, Sinbreaker, was pretty switched on and aware of sort of the situation. If he moves away and gets engaged though, I will come back and re-engage these javelin men. But he's not actually engaging the infantry currently. Which is fine by me. But he's quickly realised seeing the phalanx is coming back already. So I have to pull back again. But even though I'm actually not committing that much damage, we are taking a reasonable amount of damage, let's do a bit of a charge to try and get a bit further out the way with their javelins. We're actually prohibiting this person getting involved in the fight, and consequently our infantry have been quite successful against all their units. So, since we're not having a lot of luck that way, I think we're going to push a bit further north, see what else we can find to get stuck into. There's some enemy archers down there that may not be expecting any cavalry. So I'm going to use my flexibilities to start changing my map position. Currently overall scores are still pretty drawn. I am worried about our base capture. Is anyone going back? No. Okay, that's what we need to do then. I should have... I want to head back to base. Yes, I should have certainly noticed the base cap situation sooner. And obviously now being stuck in a forest, I'm losing a lot of my speed, so I've not got the momentum that I should have. Okay, let them engage, I'm not interested. I want to get past. Because we're going to have to engage straight away. Got a little bit of time, so I'm going to try and form up first before we charge straight in. Quickly form up, right, and then let's go for it. Try and slam straight into these enemy units here. Wait until we straighten up, and then activate the charge. There we go. Okay, so we've done a reasonable amount to help them decap, and we have got friendly archers and friendly heavy infantry on the way. Now we are a higher tier than them, which may be of benefit to us. But, you know, the tier 3 cavalry is not that much stronger in terms of, you know, compared to the scouts at tier 2, in terms of melee damage and melee attack. And we now have enemy scouts flanking around behind us, although they may actually be running away. I think ultimately we may win this, but it's going to be a hard fought battle. Let's try and see if we can keep pushing them. Well, at least we have decapped the base successfully. And we're slightly ahead now on the overall score. Okay. Realised an error. I'm going to try and pull out. Because I've realised I've sort of overly cut myself off here from any allies and I'm on my own. Okay, back to safety. Lost a few units there that I shouldn't have done. I overstretched myself and went a bit too far. Okay, so the enemy cavalry is pulling back. Right, okay, let's push around this right hand side of this rock. You never know, might be able to engage these scouts as they clear the other side of this rock. It's pretty neck and neck, the overall score, so we have got to be pretty careful about how we play this. Let's see if we can take advantage of this and activate a charge to get into the back of them. There we go. Okay, that was pretty successful, I would have said. And now we have got them well engaged. So there's a bit of a risk here. There is quite a risk here because the enemy cavalry are going to flank back around behind. Not really a lot I can do to counter this at the moment because they can activate a charge at any point, which they do. Which causes reasonable damage. So I sort of got myself into a bit of a bad spot here, which I shouldn't have done. But I hope it activates, it sort of highlights some of the playstyles that you can do. I was trying to sort of catch up and flank and hit the back of the enemy tier 2 cavalry, but unfortunately with the extra support they had, it sort of meant I have been a little bit too outnumbered. I'm certainly not going to get out of this one alive, but hopefully we'll at least inflict a reasonable amount of damage on the enemy. There we go. Okay, so we lost that fight unfortunately, but it's still pretty neck and neck. Let's have a look what the rest of our team is doing. So we have got some enemy cavalry, friendly cavalry, which have just died. So it's now, all of our team is now back at the base. So let's see if they can mount a reasonable defence. They have got good archers, which should help. And then they've got a reasonable amount of pikemen, so they are in quite a good position in that sense. I think this may be my general retreating actually, to be honest. Yeah, it looks like it. So we'll have to see if the enemy are going to mount an attack back up on the base. Getting back to base to be able to decap was a good idea. I think if I hadn't have got back in time and left when I did, we wouldn't have been able to reach it. So now hopefully our archers, yeah, this is the benefit of having archers defending the base. The enemy cavalry are going to have a pretty hard time because they're not going to be able to break through any of these phalanxes. They're going to have to deal with it with infantry. And if this war chief has got the sense enough to be able to hold still, then that's going to be quite an effective way of doing it. And the archers can inflict casualties as they come like that, which is really good. Look at that, that's brilliant. But if the enemy are able to break through any of these formations, then they're going to be in trouble because then the archers will be able to make good ground. So the enemy are predominantly made of a cavalry, but they have got a few infantry units, and they've also got some javelin men, which could be a problem. But hopefully the javelin men are engaged earlier in the battle and did a reasonable amount of damage to, so hopefully they haven't got too many units left alive. Here's an enemy unit of archers, which has got pretty good health. And it's a higher tier unit of archers. Yes, it may, the fear it may be, it may outrange the existing unit of archers, which could be a problem for them. The enemy are sort of gathering their units, ready for a fight. You see the range of our friendly archers here. That's another little tip if you didn't know. Holding down the spacebar highlights all your friendly units in blue, your own units in light blue, and all the enemy units in red. And it also shows you the range of friendly archers, friendly javelin men, and friendly artillery. So it can give you an idea, particularly the artillery. If you're out here with the artillery back here, it sort of shows you the range of your friendly support. So the levies, the javelin men are on the way up. Hopefully the archers are going to realise shortly and open fire, which they have. We don't know if that's really done a lot of damage. Yeah, they're trying to get in nice and close now. See, when they get close, the javelin men will be more effective than the archers. The archers really need to bring up the rest of the archers to open fire on their javelin men. But they're trying to shield the javelin men with their pikes by the looks of it, which is a wise move. So they're focusing fire on the enemy phalanx, which is sort of working, but then the enemy javelin men are also focusing fire on the phalanx as well. Now the next important thing is that the people realise and hold their ground. There's another enemy phalanx coming in down here. I think it's the right thing to do to target fire on these javelin men since they're quite damaging. Yeah, keep the fire on the javelin men. I think they've made an error there. They should be focusing fire on the javelins, get these people down. And then after that they can focus fire. See, now they're in trouble. The enemy have broken through and they're going straight for the archers, as they would expect, and now the cavalry have got their opportunity to make a move. And now the cavalry can come in behind like so and do a good amount of damage to the Greek hoplites. As it turns all into sort of a bit of a melee. Well, it looks like we've lost this one, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's sort of a bit of a different look at sort of how the cavalry can be used. I certainly made some mistakes. I'm not perfect, I'm not a brilliant cavalry player by any means, but I'm just trying to highlight the difference of you know, trying to avoid getting engaged in frontal engagements, which you just so often see cavalry players doing in this game. You know, just charging headlong into, you know, either Roman legions or headlong into phalanx, and they just obviously become very ineffective. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. If you have, let me know what you think down below in the comments. Like it if you want to, and subscribe for more regular Total War content. Thanks, guys. I shall see you on the next one.